Outside, crowds waited behind barriers, holding their breath. Reporters whispered into microphones, unsure what they were about to witness. Inside the courtroom, something felt different, sharper, heavier, as if the walls knew a secret no one was ready to say out loud. There were no flashing cameras, no lights, no drama from the outside world. But the silence inside? That said everything. It was the kind of silence that only falls when something historic is about to happen. Not just newsworthy, not just controversial, historic. Then came the surprise. Ben Affleck walked into the courtroom. Yes, that Ben Affleck, movie star, director, public figure, and now, key witness. He wasn't expected. His name had never been linked to the case. The media hadn't even taken his subpoena seriously when it came out earlier that week, but now here he was, walking calmly to the stand. His face was composed. His suit was clean. He had clearly been prepared for this moment, but behind the steady hands and polished look was something else, something heavier. This wasn't just a celebrity appearance. This was a man about to say something that could change everything. The judge sat upright, unusually alert. Lawyers shifted in their seats, reporters stopped typing. Even the gallery held its breath. As Affleck raised his right hand to take the oath, the room seemed frozen in time. A few jackets rustled. A pen clicked. But no one spoke. No one even blinked. The silence was deafening, because everyone in that room knew they were about to hear something they'd never forget. Ben Affleck sat down, adjusted the mic, and looked straight ahead. His voice wasn't loud. It didn't shake. But it carried weight. He spoke about a night that most of the world thought was just another celebrity party. Music, laughter, beautiful people. But for him, it became something he couldn't forget. It was a private event, years ago. A place where famous names could relax away from cameras. That night, Affleck said he stepped outside to get some air. As he walked past a quiet hallway, he heard voices. Low, careful, secret. He didn't try to listen. But what he heard stopped him in his tracks. It was Diddy and Jennifer Lopez. According to Affleck, the two were talking about something that didn't sound like gossip or business. It was serious. It was about files. Diddy mentioned that they existed, hidden, dangerous files. Then Lopez asked, "Are they gone for good?" And Diddy answered, "Only if nobody talks." Gasps filled the courtroom. Someone in the gallery dropped their notebook. Even the judge leaned forward again. For a moment, it felt like time had stopped. Affleck didn't offer theories. He didn't accuse anyone. He just told what he heard. The prosecutor nodded and asked the question everyone had on their minds. "Mr. Affleck, do you believe Jennifer Lopez knew about any criminal activity linked to Mr. Combs?" Affleck looked down, took a deep breath, then said, "I don't know what she knew. I just know what I heard." That was enough. Within the hour, the judge called a private meeting with the prosecution. By the end of the session, a new order had been issued. Jennifer Lopez was now officially under investigation, not charged, not arrested, but under full legal review. The courtroom was buzzing. Phones lit up. Reporters ran outside. News anchors went live. And just like that, the case was no longer about one man's crimes. It had become something bigger, about who helped, who hid, and who stayed silent. Outside the courthouse, it looked like a red carpet event. Except this time, the flashing lights were from police cruisers, not paparazzi. News vans doubled. Helicopters circled overhead. Crowds grew louder. The world had heard the name Jennifer Lopez spoken in court, and now it couldn't unhear it. Social media exploded. J.Lo involved. Ben said, "What? Is this real?" Confusion turned to shock. Shock turned to panic. Her fans were divided. Some defended her. Others demanded answers. Inside the courtroom, things were even more surreal. The judge hadn't issued an arrest warrant. Not yet. But he approved an emergency motion for inquiry. That gave federal investigators full authority to examine Lopez's digital records, movements, and any connection she might have to deleted files or tampered evidence. The courtroom sat in heavy silence. Even Diddy, seated behind his lawyers, didn't react. No smile, no panic. Just stillness. Like he knew this was coming. Prosecutors began building their case around a chilling pattern: silence, secrecy, and strategy. They showed text messages from anonymous sources. One encrypted message, dated 3 years ago, read, J. Doesn't want it on her. D says it's handled. No names, just letters. But after what Affleck shared, those letters hit hard. J and D, Lopez and Diddy. What did handled mean? Hidden? Destroyed? No one had answers yet. But the room felt the weight of those words like fire spreading through dry grass. Jennifer Lopez's legal team released a public statement within the hour. This is false, speculative, defamatory. Jennifer Lopez has nothing to hide. But inside the courtroom, that statement didn't stop the growing storm. This wasn't just about denial anymore. It was about connection. The prosecution wasn't saying Lopez was guilty. Not yet. They were saying she might have been close enough to know, and chose to stay close anyway. And that was enough to turn this trial into something no one had expected. The next morning, the courtroom felt heavier. Not tense, inevitable. Prosecutors returned with more: phone records, location data, timelines. There were no cameras, but the jury watched like they were staring at a live documentary. They presented a map of Jennifer Lopez's phone pings over the past 5 years. One ping showed her phone inside a gated Los Angeles mansion, a location connected to Diddy, on a night when, according to internal emails, encrypted hard drives were moved to an unknown location. She was there. For 43 minutes. No one knew why. Coincidence? Maybe. But the court didn't treat it that way. Then came the testimony from a logistics driver who once worked with celebrity clients. He was called in under protection. Anonymous voice, no camera. He recalled one delivery. 2 black cases. No labels. I was told not to ask questions. A woman handed them over, wearing sunglasses, indoors. The prosecution showed him a photo of Lopez from that same week. He paused, then said, I'm not saying it was her, but it looked a lot like her. Again, not proof, but more weight, more heat. The line between coincidence and complicity was starting to blur. Then came the second big hit, a voicemail recovered from a phone handed over by a former Diddy employee. It was distorted, but clear enough to catch one line. Tell Jay it's done, she won't be connected. No context, no names. But the initials again. Jay didn't have to be Jennifer. But in that room, everyone knew how it sounded after everything Affleck had said. Even the defense couldn't deny it. The walls were closing in. Jennifer Lopez hadn't said a word in public. She hadn't appeared in court. But her silence was now louder than any testimony. Because in this case, it wasn't just about who said what. It was about who stayed quiet, on purpose. By now, the trial wasn't just a legal case. It was a mirror, held up to an entire culture. One of silence, status, and protection. Jennifer Lopez wasn't charged. She hadn't been accused of a specific crime. But her name was no longer whispered in gossip columns. It was spoken in federal court. And every time it was mentioned, the room grew quieter. The prosecution brought in a new witness, someone from the entertainment industry. Their face was blurred, their voice altered, their identity protected, but their words, sharp, clear, unshakable. I worked closely with both of them, Diddy and J.Lo. She wasn't loud, but she always knew what was going on, especially if it involved image or reputation. They spoke of digital teams, NDA paperwork, and cleanup. Crews hired not to erase crimes, but to hide traces of risk. And Lopez? She was smart, strategic. She didn't need to say much. Everyone knew how to move when her name was involved. Then came the most chilling part, the echo list. It wasn't a document or a spreadsheet. It was a whispered term used among insiders, a mental list of people who knew too much, who to warn, who to silence. And, allegedly, J.Lo's initials came up on it more than once. The prosecution then played security footage from a luxury Miami building. No sound, just a black SUV pulling into a garage. A woman steps out wearing sunglasses and a hoodie. Confident. No record of her arrival. Cross-referenced with a photo from a gala that same night. The outfit matched Lopez's. The location? A private residence linked to Diddy. The timing? 2 days before key drives went missing. The defense called it guesswork, circumstantial. But the jury didn't move. Because by now they weren't just watching for evidence, they were watching for truth. The courtroom sat like a pressure cooker, still, quiet, ready to explode. Next, prosecutors introduced private jet flight logs. Jennifer Lopez's jet had left Miami late at night. On the same day, she was allegedly seen entering Diddy's. Off-grid residence, the destination? A private island owned by a shell company tied to Diddy's business web. No listed passengers. No phones used during flight. No digital footprint, just movement and silence. The prosecutors gave this trip a name. Vault Night. That was the night. Devices were allegedly moved, wiped, or hidden. Until now, Vault Night was only a rumor, something insiders whispered about in fear. But now it had a timeline, a location, a passenger, and Jennifer Lopez's name was right in the middle of it. Then came another witness, a man who once delivered sealed crates for VIP clients. He didn't know who the items were for. He didn't even see what was inside. But he remembered that drop-off well. I was told to take 2 locked cases to a unit in New Jersey. The pickup was arranged by someone tied to a major brand team. It was the only job that ever felt off. The prosecution showed him a document. A holding company, now shut down, had ties to both Diddy's team and Lopez's media handlers. For 2 decades, Jennifer Lopez had been untouchable. Tabloids tried, critics poked, but nothing stuck. She was too controlled, too polished, too smart. But now her image wasn't a shield. It was a target, because this case wasn't about her music or her movies anymore. It was about the quiet rooms she stood in when secrets were passed around, and her choice to walk away without saying a word. They didn't have a smoking gun, but they had enough smoke to suggest there was a fire. And Lopez, she was in the room where it burned. Prosecutors returned with something unexpected. Not a file, not a photo, a voice, a deleted voicemail, recovered from a device turned in by a former Diddy staff member. The audio was damaged, but one line stood out. "Tell Jay it's done. She won't be connected." The initials again. The calm tone. The implication. Someone was protecting her. The defense objected, said Jay could mean anyone. But the court had already heard the pattern too many times. This wasn't just bad luck. It was starting to look like a system. Then came the digital consultant. She had worked briefly with Lopez's brand team. She testified remotely, face blurred, voice altered. Her job? To wipe data. Not delete it, just move it, hide it, bury it deep. She recalled one moment clearly. There was panic. Someone said, "Make sure nothing ties back to Jay." Not a text, not a timestamp, not even a shadow. The room held its breath. These weren't last-minute cover-ups. These were procedures, a whole team making sure one name stayed clean, even if everything around it got dirty. Then came the real twist, a partial transcript, newly unsealed, between 2 lawyers and a music executive. It wasn't meant for this trial, but it had been flagged in another case and shared with the court. One line hit like a punch. "If this blows up, Jay's the only one clean enough to survive. Use Affleck if we have to." That moment silenced the room. This wasn't just about whether Jennifer Lopez knew something. It was about whether she was being used or volunteering to protect it all. Reporters outside the courtroom didn't even wait for recess. The headlines hit fast. Lopez's name circles tighter around the case. The clean star at the heart of dirty secrets. And for the first time, even her loyal supporters had to ask, how long had she known, and what had she chosen to keep silent? By now, the courtroom wasn't just packed, it was pressurized. Outside, streets were lined with cameras and police tape. Inside, not a seat was empty. Even off-duty celebrities slipped in under hats and hoodies, but one chair remained unfilled. Jennifer Lopez's. She had not appeared in person, not once, only through lawyers, only in statements. But that was about to change. Prosecutors displayed their final tool, a digital wall. A timeline projected across the courtroom screen. Every name, every flight, every phone ping, each step Lopez had taken in the last 5 years, laid out like puzzle pieces. She wasn't everywhere. But she had been in all the right places, at all the wrong times. They didn't accuse her of hiding evidence. They didn't have to. They were showing how evidence hid around her. The door opened. For a moment, time stopped. Jennifer Lopez entered the courtroom. No makeup team, no stylists, no spotlight, just a black suit, tired eyes, and a silence that screamed louder than any headline. Reporters whispered. The gallery leaned in. Even the judge took a breath. She sat beside her lawyers, calm but cold. Not to speak, just to be seen. Then, prosecutors played one final clip. Audio from a private gala 3 years old. Soft music, laughter, clinking glasses, and then, if it's ever questioned, we were never there, and no one kept copies. The voice matched Lopez's past interviews. It wasn't proof of a crime, but it was proof of something else. She wasn't unaware. She wasn't confused. She was present. Before closing for the day, the judge looked at the jury and said, "This case is not about fame. It is about responsibility. And silence, when repeated and calculated, is no longer innocence. It becomes a decision." Lopez didn't cry. She didn't speak. She stood, adjusted her suit, and walked out the way she came in. Quiet, controlled, unreadable. But something had changed. The world no longer saw a star untouchable. They saw someone who knew things and said nothing. And in that silence, the truth finally echoed loud enough for everyone to hear.